Well, hi everybody, Gary Sinclair. Well, cars were burning, rocks were being tossed for another night. The police again were doing everything they could to keep things from getting worse, but it was hardly enough. And no, the local sports team hadn't just won a championship. And to make their point and express their views, the protesters turned on many of their own people, stealing their products, ruining their buildings, and decimating their hard work in recent years to simply try to have a good life here. And some of the protesters didn't even know why they were there. City leaders thought they had it under control, but that changed too. Thankfully, the National Guard was brought in to at least stem the potential worsening of the conflict. And you probably think I'm talking about Los Angeles the last week. Nope. This was what I saw in the Detroit riots of 1967. During that time, as a young person, I would leave my church some evenings to head home. You know what I'd see? Tanks roll down the main street alongside police cars with shotguns poked out the window. See, the issues and priorities were different and also similar in those days. But in my opinion, in both scenarios, 1967 and 2025, there were some fundamental reasons and abandoned truths that were really the fertile soil for the destruction, the fighting, the looting, and inability to resolve the problems in healthy, productive ways. Leaders and talking heads like to explain away the real issues, and they like to blame someone or something apart from themselves. One high-profile national government leader back in 2020 said, and I quote, "Well, you know, that's what people do in times like this." Really? Or more recently, "They're just out having some fun." Doesn't sound like fun to me. And it didn't turn into fun in 1967. But you see, ignoring the fundamental deeper issues and neglected key principles is a recipe, maybe the recipe, for more trouble, not less. And yes, there are often people's preferences that get turned into principles in both sides of arguments. But I'm not suggesting those must guide us all. But there are several truths, unchangeable, immutable foundations that are essential to a healthy society and its ability to work through differences without rioting in the streets. First, there's such a thing as right and wrong. All morality isn't relative. It can't be. We can't live as the people described in the Old Testament book of Judges lived for a time when it said everyone did as he saw fit or she saw fit. Leaders, however, speak out of one side of their mouth saying no one can live above the law and then do just that to get what they want or explain away their own actions. You see, if we're honest, the 10 Commandments of the Bible, the words of Jesus, are certainly at the core of our moral foundation and frankly others too. But while thou shalt not steal doesn't have exceptions, you'd never know that from the current arguments and explanations for the looting. Psalm 11:3 says it well, "When the foundations are being destroyed, what can the righteous do?" The second problem, though, is human life is still valuable and all people were created equal. We've lost that. And yet today, those who kill and maim and torture, etc., are been given free passes or overlooked by leaders who just want to fight more for the rule breakers who have little regard for life, little regard compared to those who work hard and do their best and care about others. The media only listens to and accepts their point of view while ridiculing those who oppose them. They've lost touch with the true value of every person. And third, there is eternity, life after this life, and one who oversees it all. I've done a lot of funerals in my time, but I've never heard anyone at a service say, "Well, that's it for Jim. We'll never see him again." When the Buffalo Bills player nearly died during a nationally televised game a few years ago, players and crowd members immediately prayed. No one called for a humanist or atheist to come down and encourage the crowd. But today's responses seem more like what's described in the New Testament in 2 Corinthians 4:4. The God of this age, Satan, has blinded the minds of unbelievers. Now, not every bad thing has the devil in the middle of it, but there's little doubt that he's blurring people's thinking, getting them to forget about God. But that doesn't make sense either. Fourth, there's wisdom and respect in considering the views of one another, even when there's disagreement. Proverbs 15:22 says, "Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed." How sad it is when most every decision made in our government these days is partisan. It's made because of one's party, not because of what's best or what's smartest. How tragic that a good idea is no longer more important than the party idea. So what can we do? Well, first, pray. We're to pray for our leaders according to Scripture, whether we agree with them or not, 2 Timothy or 1 Timothy 2:1-4, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives, it says. Second, we had to model the truth in our home, our conversations, and life in general, of course. But third, we need to be a part of the solution. Maybe attend some local meetings where key decisions are made. Run for an office if possible. Make phone calls. Write gracious but specific letters to leaders about what is wise and based on truth, not hearsay. But don't assume things will change if you just remain silent. And we got to quit supporting or watching media sources of lies, not truth. You can try writing them, and you can share your opinion, even have conversations if possible. But these supposed sources of truth need to know when their views aren't resonating, and even one opposing response can help do that. Yes, the strife these days can seem overwhelming, but I can tell you that we've gotten through some real challenges like our country did in 1967. We survived. And it will help if we live by the maxim, don't curse the darkness. Instead, light a candle. Get out your matches, pray like crazy. Talk to you next time.